Standing right next to an ant's nest.
Uh-oh. Oh, wow. Don't want to stand on that
Just
thing.
didn't want you standing on
No,
it
I'm glad he told
to
me.
Take a feast out of your foot.
They'll come running up your shoe and be halfway up your leg before you even know they're there.
Yeah.
And you'll only know because they're biting you.
Yeah, you just wonder why your foot's on fire and now running down the street by itself. Hey, did you get that little bush there?
No, which one?
White flowers.
Oh yeah, no I didn't actually. There's some interesting old style bushes over here. I've seen that one before somewhere. You know, it's not that unusual. Some of these could have come from Europe as well, you know, when the British were here, because they used to take flowers from all over the world and trees.
Yeah, botany was big in the 1800s.
Yeah, they were big into one of the things they brought from Russia, interestingly enough, was something called the giant hogweed, and that went along all the railway lines and choked things.
Huh.
You know, something in Russia must have eaten it and kept it down, but it didn't happen in England.
Probably one of those things that froze to death in the winter.
There was a Genesis song, one of their really early ones, called The Return of the Giant Hogweed or something like that. I'd have to look the words up, but I remember thinking, what the heck is a giant hogweed? And so I didn't even know then that pigs were called hogs, because it's not a word that's used in England. So, you know, I was still a kid. I was 14 or 15, I think, when I got that album. But I remember looking it up. When they built the railways, a whole load of things started to grow across the railway lines. Like, we didn't have many blackberries. They were in certain areas of the country, and then they went along some of the cuttings where they cut the land out to keep the railroads flat. And the blackberries grew across all them, and then they went all over the country, which was a good thing because some people had never tasted them in those days.
See that chimney?
Which one?
The yellow house.
Oh yeah, that's definitely an old style chimney. It's got something above it to stop the birds.
Yeah.
What used to happen, they used to put something over the top of the chimneys, which was, I believe it was called a cowl in England. And as the house got older, they would fall off. And then birds would fall down the chimney, which is, you know, there's nothing you can do. I mean, if the fire wasn't on, then you grab the bird and take it out, but in the meantime it will try and peck you to pieces.
It's gotta be an absolute nightmare. You're cooking dinner and then the chimney just explodes with this
feathers everywhere,
coal covered flaming birds screeching in agony and spoiling stew.
And looking for a fight usually, apparently.
Well, I'd be looking for a fight too if my house caved in and somebody was trying to cook me alive in a stew pot.
No, what happened, they'd come down, they'd be covered in soot, and they'd go berserk when they got down, partly because they were covered in soot. And all you'd see was this black demonic creature suddenly emerge from the fireplace.
That'd make a good old-timey story, invasion of the chimney snatchers or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I still remember I don't know whether my granddad once swept. I remember at one house seeing the chimney sweep come. It was probably my grandma's house. But they came, and I was really small, like 3 or 4. And I remember watching him fit all the brushes together on a long pole, bit by bit, and just push it up the chimney. And then they told me to get back, and then all the soot came down after a while, which was kind of quite a surprise for a little 3 or 4-year-old.
Yeah.
When we get to the main road again, we'll turn left and go up.
Alright.
Just see what's up there. I don't know that there's that much, but there might be some good old buildings up there, you know, nice buildings.
Oh, there's a dome over there. Oh, that's the clock tower, never mind.
Oh, that's a church, it's a Presbyterian.
Yeah, it's the one we saw before with the clock tower on it.
Oh.
Or do you mean this one to the right?
Yeah, the one to the right. Interesting. See how that's built though, it's more square.
Yeah. What's
That was
Presbyterian?
yeah, they were fairly modern, weren't they? Sometime in the 1800s. They've got the date there, I just can't read it from here. 1850.
Sign too.
Came from Scotland as far as I remember. Wow. Female pastor and a female associate pastor.
Check out all these flowers.
Yeah, I don't know who founded the Presbyterian Church.
I know.
I know his name because I've read about him before, but years ago when I was a teenager.
There's that sign there. I don't know if you can make it out or not.
Which one?
One to the right.
Oh yeah, that's a fellowship hall. The Jim Thomas Hall.
No, this one here.
Oh, that one. Completely missed that.
Yeah. I know you like filming those.
Yeah. Archibald Baker. That was a good old British name. I don't know whether he came from Britain. You don't know. He could have done actually, because there were still a lot of Brits left after Britain sold it to Spain. Oh, Yulee was Florida's first senator. Interesting.
That's why everything's named after him.
Yeah, there's a fairly big, what's a fairly big town now to the south of this bit called Yulee. It's Fernandina's oldest church building. Interesting. That Catholic church is older, the one in St. Augustine. I know it is.
Well, that's the first church in North America, so better than older.
Yeah, even though it's a Spanish church. I think they tended to ignore the Catholics, unfortunately. And yet their buildings, you know, when at least before Henry VIII took them off them, they had some really nice church buildings.
Yeah.
The church in Sawley was rebuilt in the 1800s though. But there was a church on the site of Sawley way back in 1089 when William the Conqueror had the Domesday Book written. They surveyed the area, and there's listed how many cows and pigs and people lived there, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was like the world's first census or something.
Yeah, he was a Viking, so they were better organised than other people. They used standardised stone blocks, the Normans, and the Saxons just cut, you know, blocks square to any size that fitted, and then they just fit them together. So technically, you could tell the difference between a house built in 1065 and one built in 1068, say, a couple of years after the invasion, because it took them a couple of years to subdue the country, and then probably a bit longer to get it organised to Norman rules.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of a boom after William came, you know, building boom and stuff. Because he built castles in every county had a castle in the main town. Like Nottingham had one built in Nottingham, Derby had one built in Derby, I think. I don't know what the capital of Derbyshire was. I'm not that sure. It must have been, because it's called Derbyshire.
Yeah.
So it must have been Derby. Derby was never that big a town though. Although it was a very important place in the early rail lines. Some of those buildings were built in 1830. Just really when they were only just starting to build the railroads over there. This will take us back to the main road. Oh, this one's 1860. I wonder if that was the original church and then that one was built a bit later. Yeah, circa 1860, and that one's 1868 or 66.
Yeah.
So that was probably the first Presbyterian church, Old Day Cottage. I wonder if that was where he lived.
Probably it was the first church and then it got turned into the pastor's house.
Yeah, often they would start with a house, whereas, you know, like they were telling us in St. Augustine, the first thing they did was build the church and the fortress or the governor's mansion.
Stop filming now.
Why?
Hear that music? YouTube might copyright it, so